So, folks, an OG makes his untimely exit. Will the Dark Passenger, the real Dark Passenger, of course, escape Praetor's clutches? And will anyone else in Dexter's proximity also exit stage left? All of that and more on Tonight's the Night, the Dexter Resurrection Unofficial Podcast. Stay tuned. All right. Good evening to those of you on the East Coast. Good evening also to those of you on the West Coast. Welcome to Tonight's the Night, the Dexter Resurrection Unofficial Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Choi. And if you are watching, fellow Dark Passenger, you are also keen to travel down the rabbit hole that is the world of one Dexter Morgan. If you have been on the show before, you guys are aware of how it goes. I'll go into a brief synopsis with you guys to start for this week's episode titled Touched by an Angel. And afterwards, I will introduce our guest host this week. Excited to have them joining us this week. And afterwards, after their introduction, we'll go into some analysis of the episode as well as some theories that we respectively might have of what's coming. But other than that, we will wrap up the show with our review of the episode. And with that out of the way, I'm going to hop into our synopsis, but I will preface it with, as I always say, if you are watching the show live, very much appreciate you joining us live. However, if you are catching it after the fact, after it is aired live, just know that will be time-stamped accordingly, so that way, if you so choose, you can backtrack, you can fast forward to your heart's content to a given specific part of the episode. So just keep that in mind. And with that, I'm going to get into our synopsis. So one moment. And of course, it goes without saying, spoilers are ahead if you have not seen this episode. So we begin this episode, episode 9, titled Touched by an Angel, picking up from last week's cliffhanger as Dexter plays mental gymnastics with Praetor, who has confronted him as he has a meal with Harrison. After seemingly providing sufficient responses to Praetor's questions about having a kid, when he moves their conversation outside the restaurant, Dexter makes a beeline out the back entrance of the restaurant with Harrison in tow. It is during the sequence that is sneaking out of the back entrance of the restaurant that Dexter is afforded the opportunity to bring Harrison up to speed on his ties to Praetor. However, not so fast, as unbeknownst to father and son, they are being tailed by none other than Bautista. However, Dex, being the cunning person that he is, manages to get the slip on his former colleague. Later on, Harrison has a run-in with Charley at his job that leaves him rattled, so much so that it puts Charley in Dex's crosshairs when Harrison informs him of their encounter. However, before he makes his move on Charley, Dex does some research on Praetor's mysterious assistant, learning about her military background and her bedridden mother. Feeling that he has sufficient leverage on her, Dexter confronts Charley, Dark Passenger style, warning her to keep her distance from his son. Elsewhere, Wallace and Oliva, now equipped with the info regarding Bautista's retirement, meet with him to discourage his pursuit of the case he's investigating against Dexter and Harrison, much to his chagrin. However, in his seeming defeat, Bautista comes across a breadcrumb connected to what he witnessed earlier, entailing Dexter and Harrison. Meanwhile, Dexter meets up with Harrison and girlfriend Gigi back at his place after tasking Blessing to pick them up. To keep him safe, Dexter encourages Harrison to stay with his girlfriend, while he handles the matter with Prater. Back at Prater's compound, Charley notifies Prater of her encounter with Dex, still believed at this point to be the Dark Passenger, and Dex shortly after calls Prater to schedule a rendezvous with him. The next day, Bautista, having made the connection or a connection between Dexter and Prater, goes to see Prater, forcing his way through security and spilling the beans to Prater and Charley about Dex's true identity as the Bay Harbor Butcher. Now equipped with that knowledge, the episode concludes with Dexter visiting Prater at his place for their rendezvous and being ambushed by Prater and Charley in Prater's serial killer memorabilia vault, with the former offering to be Dex's benefactor in his crusade to rid the world of serial killers, so long as he can watch Dex's methods in disposing of them. However, there's one catch. This crusade must start with the death of his former colleague Bautista. Dex momentarily does take a moment to ponder taking out his former friend, but ultimately makes the decision to free Bautista, who, instead of allying himself with Dex, attacks him, unfortunately leaving himself vulnerable to Prater, who fatally shoots him, or seemingly fatally shoots him, more on that later, and traps him and Dexter in his vault, which brings us to the end of this week's episode, again titled Touched by an Angel, otherwise known as episode 9 of this season of Dexter Resurrection. And with that, I'm going to get into the introduction of our guests this week. Today's guest is an accomplished comic book artist and writer, best known for his work for Archie Comics, recognized for his notable works in series such as Archie Meets Kiss, Archie Meets Batman 66, Archie versus Sharknado, Red Sonja and Vampirella Meet Betty and Veronica, and a variety of other titles. Our guest host is also the creator of Archie's first openly gay character, Kevin Keller, and is also the co-creator of the hit series Die Kitty Die. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show Mr. Dan Parent. Let me bring him on now. Dan, hello. How are you?
Hey, how are you? Good to be here.
Awesome. So, as I said, super excited to have you here. Thanks for joining us this week for this penultimate episode of season 1 of Dexter Resurrection. Just to give your initial impressions, Dan, what were your thoughts on this episode? Before we'll get into the details later, of course, with the review, but just generally.
Right. Yeah. I thought it was good. I thought I like Angel, Bautista, but yeah, I knew he was gonna blow it. I knew he was gonna screw it up for Dexter. But yeah, I like how they have had that connection from the past, but I really like the whole serial killer entourage they've had this season. And I like how he's dealt with them one by one. So yeah, I think they, again, I like the episode moved along really well. And I like the fact that we got to see Charley. I like the fact that we got to see what she was about. That was really good, I thought. But no, I was impressed. A good cliffhanger, and several things can happen.
Yes, and I'm glad you bring that up. I would say impressions for me. I had an issue with last week's episode where it felt like there was a lot of just setup and nothing really happened. And it felt like this episode, things are finally coming to a head, and that a lot of worlds that we have been exposed to separately are finally now conversing and colliding. As you normally have with a penultimate episode, they do have a nice WTF moment where, we'll get into that of an OG seemingly passing away. I want to dive into that too. And then, as you said, setting some surprises, setting the stage with some surprises by the end. But getting into analyzing some components of the episode, and I'm curious to know if there were some things that arose for you. Is one thing that I have discussed in prior episodes, and it pops up again here, is the idea of duality. almost in the same way that we have, speaking of comic books, the way we have with superheroes and having dual identities and having the identity as perhaps the superhero or the supervillain being your actual guys versus what you know publicly have as your as your mask, so to speak. Because we see it with many of the characters, whether going again with Dex being a typical like normal father for Harrison, and Prater being this billionaire philanthropist, to many people. Charley, from what we come to know, being a caretaker for her mother, and Blessing being the ideal father and husband, or trying to give that perception of being that way. What are your thoughts on that? And that, I mean, it's existed, I feel like, throughout all of the Dexter universe, but it feels like they examined it a lot more, or I should say they have examined it a lot more because of the circumstance with this, serial killer group.
Well, I like the fact that Dexter still lives by his code. He still doesn't randomly kill people
Right.
that aren't like deserving. Like the people he's killed in this series were deserving, or so-called deserving by Dexter's code. He didn't.
Correct.
He didn't kill Charley, which he could have done easily.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't, she doesn't fit the code. She's not a serial killer, even though she's very much an enabler of serial killers. And interesting to see what happens with Prater, because again, he's not technically a serial killer, but he's certainly enabling the whole process.
Yeah.
I'm also worried about like what's going to happen with the son, because Prater made a promise that he would leave the son alone, which was a complete lie. He totally had Uma Thurman, but totally had Charley infiltrate the kid, or investigate the kid. So he's not hands off at all. I mean, you could tell that Prater is he plays dirty with the truth. So I'm like, I see the show going like it can go a couple different ways. Like, if something happens to Dexter's son, then that's a whole new ball game. That's a whole other. That's a whole new series. It's because we saw it happen before with what happened with his wife in the original series. It kind of set the ball for a couple more seasons.
For sure.
So I'm nervous because I like this kid. I like his son a lot.
And I was going to say, it's funny you bring that up, because, and we'll go into more, or say, I'll go in more depth with it. With the theory part is, as you said, at this point of how that character of Harrison has been used in this show, I've enjoyed a lot more than how he was used in the past. I didn't enjoy, I'll be honest, I didn't really enjoy how much the way he was utilized in New Blood. Where it just seemed like he was just a hindrance, and it wasn't really anything that he added to the show other than just being an obstacle and a hindrance or irritation for Dexter in terms of the problems that he seemed to create. But in this show, it feels like he is a partner, and as someone who is a valued member of kind of his circle that works with him. So
like in the early episode when he killed the guy in the hotel, the sleaze, when he killed that sleaze bag I think it was in the second episode. Again, it was by the code. He's sticking with his father's code, and they still make the character is so likable as is Dexter, because they are living by a moral code, if as strange as that may sound. not a legal code, but I mean, you do sympathize. I mean, we all fantasize about justice and what we would do, and there are people you justify or you wish you could knock off in our heads. And Dexter, again, if this was a show about him just randomly killing people because he enjoyed killing, the show would lose its entire focus.
And
the son, they with his son, Harrison, they seem to have put him in that light of being like his dad, but maybe not quite as severe or as Dexter. But he's got the gene.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Another, I was going to say another one that I'm curious to know your thoughts on too, in talking about this episode, is the whole situation with Prater. Up to this point, Prater has seemingly been it's been very fascinating in terms of the guys, as I said, that he provides to the public of being this very generous billionaire, but underneath the surface, we know like the darkness that resides there. And one thing that seems to become apparent, especially in this episode, as we get that revelation from what's her name, from Charley, about it not being her plan to visit Harrison, but rather it was Prater's idea to send her, is just this idea of him in a weird way being a collector or possessor of people, where just by means of him being a billionaire and I guess having so many possessions, he kind of just has that mindset of as she mentions, finding the weaknesses in people, exploiting it, and using it as a way to somehow control others. I'm curious to know your thoughts on that, because in some circumstances, it may seem like he's really being a do-gooder, but if you really look underneath it all, it's really him trying to control others.
Well, they were smart in casting the villain as an egocentric billionaire, because we have some in our, in public light. You don't even have to mention names. So they that was a really wise decision, because like many billionaire philanthropists, we see some are not what they're made out to be, and then some are. And the fact that he has this persona of being this easygoing philanthropist, but he's really this like collector of serial killers. It doesn't seem like that much of a stretch. Because and again, I'm not like even saying that all billionaires are bad or whatever. I just think it was a good idea for a villain.
Sure.
It resonates.
For sure.
So, but yeah, no, I think I'm curious to see how far he'll go, because I think he's already gone pretty far down the rabbit hole as far as, if you're enabling serial killers, I guess you've already gone as far as you can go. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with Dexter and Angel, and if Angel's really, dead.
Yeah. No,
anything can happen.
Yeah. On this show, anything is fair game. But
he could have had a vest on, a bulletproof vest.
He could have. He could have very well. Yeah, he could have. I was gonna say also, I mean, I feel like going back to this idea is that I think the reason why he finds Dexter so fascinating is the very reason that he can't seem to permeate through the armor that he has put up around his life, because he seemingly is able to so easily kind of weave and weasel his way into other people's lives. I know there was an example at the gala where there was I guess the person who was helping to organize it, he somehow found someone as a specialist to assist her ill parent. We have the instance that we find out revealed with Charley, where he's doing the same thing there, and finding a way to somehow having some type of grapple on someone's life. And yet, I think the reason why it feels different with Dexter, even though he's not explicitly saying it, is because he hasn't been able to do that. And there's fascination that he hasn't managed to do that. And there's more interest there, unlike the other people in his group, where it seems like he's, knows every single detail about who they are.
Right. I mean, there was some, you have to sort of suspend, some belief. The whole issue with like him looking exactly like the Red, the actual serial killer. I mean, it was funny because when they showed him in the earlier episode, you could see there was like a resemblance when they had the hood on and stuff, but you know, that was just one of those things that you had to sort of like suspend belief because he had to infiltrate that group of serial killers somehow, and that was you know, how they did it. But you know, I had to sort of like, you know, just sort of like let that one go a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean there have been, and I'm glad you brought that up because there have been some instances then throughout this season where, like, if we're talking about real world, current day and age setting, that some of it you really did have to suspend your disbelief, like the situation you were mentioning with Harrison and his situation with the guests and taking out that, you know, the scumbag of a guest that you had mentioned.
Right.
I don't see how he would have been able to manage to do that if we're talking about a modern day hotel.
Right.
In terms of the level of surveillance that you would have at a hotel.
I agree. And I guess, yes, they did address it a little bit, but yeah, I mean, in this day and age, there would have been
cameras everywhere,
right,
even in the kitchen.
Right, exactly, yeah. So you know, and again, there's always the disbelief you have to suspend whenever, you know, Dexter comes across one of his victims. He always manages to scoop them up very easily with very few witnesses around whenever he drags his victims to his death rooms or whatever you call them, kill rooms. There's always very few people around.
Right. Fittingly or conveniently.
Yeah.
But getting into some theories, I'm curious to know, because I teased it a little bit at the top of some that I have, but I want to, you know, give you the floor as a guest host this week. Are there any particular ones that come to mind for you as potential things that might be ahead in the season finale in this first season?
Well, I think there's a couple things could happen. I think if they really want to go full on tragedy, full on crazy cliffhanger, they could, you know, do away with, you know, Harrison. They could get her killed, and that would kind of go back to when his wife was killed. It would be more of like a setup there.
Yeah.
And it would give Dexter a real vengeance moving forward, which of course is good for TV.
Sure.
They could, you know, I also could see some kind of weird connection with, I mean, I don't know, this might be really stretching it too, but if Angel lives, could there be some sort of alliance with Dexter and him?
Yeah.
That could happen. That would be interesting. That might be pushing it too, since he's been after the Bay Harbor Killer. Is that what it's called?
Bay Harbor Butcher. Yeah,
Bay Harbor Butcher. I mean, he's been his whole purpose is going after him. No, suspecting that Dexter is him. So could there be a turnaround where he, you know, sort of becomes an ally? That would be pushing it, but it could happen. I'm interested to see what could happen with Charley. Could end up being a good future character, because I don't know. Again, I don't think she's that
evil.
I think I think she's just, you know, again, she's just doing Praetor's bidding just because, basically because she has to. But maybe they've made her have to be so cold and calculated that, again, now we kind of see like the reason she's doing it. Could she end up being some sort of partner or ally to Dexter? That would be interesting.
And I think we are on the same wavelength.
Because she's really good. Like, I like Uma Thurman a lot.
Yeah.
And the character is good. And she's complicated too, which is good.
Yeah.
So you never know. And she's, you know, she's got a military background and she's smart. So she, you know, maybe Dexter,
be useful.
Maybe Dexter could be useful. Yeah, definitely. So
Yeah, no, I agree with you because and you basically touched on many of those things that I was gonna bring up as well. In that I feel like this season, based on the things that we've learned about a lot of the characters and where they lie, like how far on the good or evil spectrum they fall, or if they fall somewhere in the middle, that Dexter may come across, as you said, unexpected allies by the season finale, because I mean, we do get that reveal that ultimately at the end of the day, Charley, as you said, seemed like a very cold and unfeeling, person. But again, going back to the idea of duality, it was a guise where she was putting that front on in order to be able to kind of hang or survive in this atmosphere with Prater and his group. And who knows? I mean, because she mentions on how much she kind of despises Prater's fascination with
Mhm.
serial killers and how she's not really in support of it. There may come a time, because I mean, there have been a couple of times this season where they have not seen eye to eye, and there have been a couple of times where he has been very dismissive of her, and where they've been at odds with each other. So maybe something comes to a head in this season finale where she flips on Prater and decides to free Dexter in order to take care of Prater, knowing that he's the lesser of the two evils, basically.
Yeah.
And then I was going to also say, adding to that, I think because I was trying to figure out how is Dexter going to solve this whole Detective Wallace situation. I feel like that's also going to come to a head at the gala, where we already come to the understanding that Oliva is planning on attending this gala. And I don't know if you've heard my ramblings of theories in prior episodes, but I do
Mhm.
have a suspicion that he is the New York Ripper. So I do feel that will become a reveal, and in doing so, also be a reveal that he is in league with Prater, as a kind of like plot twist.
Mm.
But in the nick of time, Dexter will somehow save Wallace from Oliva, which will put Wallace in Dexter's debt, thereby creating an uneasy truce between them.
Right.
Um,
Right.
Same thing, going into what you were talking about with Harrison. Um, no one, as we know, in knowing the world of Dexter, has really survived in Dexter's orbit, friend, family, foe, or otherwise. So, will it come down to Dexter again? Because they kind of tease it in this episode, where Harrison is chatting with Dexter about what is it about the conversation that he had with or the half truth that he shared with what's her name, with Charley, where he talks about Dexter abandoning him, and Dexter saying, I won't do that again. He has that line, I hear you, but the life you live is not entirely your decision. So
Yeah.
he may make peace, even though before he took issue with that abandonment. He may make peace with the fact that Dexter may need to abandon him again in order to protect him.
Right. Right.
Um, but getting into lastly into Bautista, weirder things have happened on the show with characters coming back. I mean, we are talking about a show in which a character was shot at point blank range in the prior series and is now alive and kicking
I
to
know.
live to tell the tale from his being shot point blank range from his son. So um, I don't know. Maybe I feel like they did that as a quote unquote WTF moment with this show, just to get people up in arms to finally reveal that um, you know that he may live to tell the tale. And worst case scenario, I would say, based off of the injury sustained, it could be an instance where he is alive and he's just permanently injured in a wheelchair. So he could be kind of, as you said, a what is it? What's the character? It's not Oracle that I'm thinking of. Um, who kind of acts as kind of like a sidekick for Dexter and kind of helping him find his, his different targets, so to speak. And they kind of, as you said, develop a truce with one another, uneasy truce with one another for the betterment of getting rid of all these, horrible people that are out there.
And they still have to contend with, I don't know, I forget the killer's name, Eric Stone Street's character.
Yeah, exactly. With Rapunzel.
So that maybe that's something that they're saving for next season if it comes back,
Sure.
a nemesis for him next season, or maybe he'll be in the finale too. I don't know, but
I don't know. I think more the former, based off of what we have going on with the show, because I can't see a reasonable way to have it make sense for him to come back based off
and then
of the
they
reasoning
tend
that
to like do that with characters on Dexter too. Like the characters float around and then sometimes they come back again, like 12 episodes later. So that seems like that would be a really good storyline for next season if it came back, him coming back into the fold. So
for sure. So keeping that in mind, were there any if we were to wrap it up and get into like just overall how you would review this episode, if you're not aware, I base it off of our microscopes here. So 5 being a perfect episode, 4 being good, and trickling down the average with 3. Well, what are your thoughts? How are you feeling about episode 9?
I would give it 4.
Okay.
I would give it 4 out of 5. I think it was solid. But yeah, it was good. It was good. I 2 thumbs up, 4 microscopes up, whatever, 4 out of 5. But I would say, I guess it, for it to be a 5, it would have to be, I don't know what it would have to be, but I was satisfied. I was really satisfied with it. And I do think the season has gotten better as it's gone along. I think I was very questionable at the first episode. I've been like, oh my God, how are they going to bring him back?
Yeah.
And I was still, and then when they explained it was the cold and all that stuff that kept him alive, it was like, I'm still not fully on board here.
Right.
But I think that they once he was established back, this settling in New York seemed like a good place. And then, the whole bringing in Peter Dinklage and all these really good actors as serial killers was a really good twist. It was a good just sort of I don't know, bringing in a whole rogue of these characters, and also again showing you that why Dexter is different from these other people. Kind of cements the fact that that's why we like Dexter, because he still has this moral code, so to speak.
Yeah. So
it's gotten better. I think last night's episode is probably the best episode of the season. So I think they've. I was really skeptical at first why they're bringing Dexter back, and then I even saw like a thing where Michael Hall was on one of the talk shows. I think it was Colbert, and even they were asking like, "Why are you bringing Dexter back? Was Dexter really killed?" And Michael Hall kind of admitted that he really was at the time. Like they really had planned to end it that way.
Yeah.
To undo the bad ending of the original series.
The irony.
But then when they asked him why it came back, basically he just said, well, I want to bring him back. Like he kind of like he wants to do it again. He doesn't want to give it up. So I wasn't sure that was a good enough reason. But listen, it's this television, it's fantasy, and I'm enjoying it. So
Yeah, I was going to say similarly. I would probably give it a 4 out of 5 as well. I did have a perfect episode this season, though, or as close to perfect as it could be. It was the introduction of Prater and the introduction of all the other characters that were part of that series. Mm-hmm. Like it was almost like what you would have of like an ensemble. I hate to say like superhero type of film where you have like all these different characters that are assembling together. So in a very weird, twisted way. But as you said, because you have these, terrific actors that are each taking on each of those respective characters, it made it that much better.
The Gemini murderer was really good. I forget his name, David
Jasmouchin.
Yeah, he's always good, and he was really that was a really good twist.
With the twin, yeah,
the twin thing was really good. So
yeah, for sure. So I mean, I would say four for me. I'm still. And hopefully you guys get rid of this next season and season 2. I still have an issue with the flash forward thing. It still bothers me. That flash forward editing choice that is done at the top of each episode. Please stop doing that. Please stop.
Yeah.
It bothers me a lot.
Sometimes I could do without the father thing too. I don't mind his father coming in and when he's talking to his father. I mean, again, he has to review his thought process sometimes, but a little that works okay a little bit. But
you think they did overboard this so far this season?
Yes, I mean, I don't know. I guess it didn't bother me that much, but I can live without it, or I guess I'm indifferent to it.
Or would you rather do without it, or would you just rather them do less of it?
I think less.
Okay.
Less. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. So there you have it. We have our penultimate episode in the books. Next week will be the season finale. Who's to say who will make it out of the season? We will see, but very curious to find out who will be left after the smoke clears, so to speak. But with that, Dan, I'm going to punt it over to you. Can you tell folks where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on social media. Well, first of all, my website's danparent.com, but you can find me on Instagram at ParentDaniel. I'm also on Facebook. You could just Google it or do the search. I'm on Facebook all the time. Yeah, and then on Twitter, same thing, ParentDaniel, or whatever they call it now, X. Yeah, you can just find me, and I'm always online. I'm always posting stuff on social media, but Instagram is probably where you'll find me the most, and you can always message me there with any questions or comments. So yeah.
Cool beans. So again, I want to thank Dan for joining us this week. I'm your host, Brandon Choi. You can find me at Brandon Choi ENT on X, and Brandon Choi _ENT on Instagram. With that being said, I also want to give a shout out to the Patreon supporters. Give a shout out to you guys. Thank you guys so much for the support that you provide. Help keep the lights on. And if you want to be a Patreon supporter, you can check out the link below, as we have a whole bunch of different tiers. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there. And otherwise, I will see you next week for the season finale. See you guys later.